Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about something I find really interesting. I've been reading this book called Dreams and the Search for Meaning. I found this book when I was in Melbourne, just in like a random bookstore, and I didn't actually think I would learn anything from it because the page I opened to, it just kind of had the same stuff that I already know. But the more I started reading it, the more I learned, and there are a few things I want to talk about. Because ages ago I wanted to do a video on dreams, but I felt like I didn't know enough about it to make a video. And now I feel like I know so much that I won't even be able to talk about it in one video. Crazy how things like that happen. I've written down in my little book just kind of like the things that I want to remember, because I feel like, I don't know if other people like this, but I'll read some things and I'll just forget them. And I used to kind of like bookmark the page so I could come back, but I'm never going to go back. So I'm writing them down now so I can actually remember. So to begin with, a few like context stuff, so things that I'm not going to talk about, but I guess is like assumed knowledge. But one of them is the idea that dreams are as real as reality, not in the sense that you can touch, feel, and like experiencing it the same way, and it doesn't necessarily have like a long-lasting effect on your real reality. But if you look at it in like an abstract way, the way it makes you feel and the hallucinations of what you're experiencing, the images and the feelings, those are all real. And so in a very grounded way, they are as real as reality. You can even go as far as to say that they kind of exist in a realm outside of our comprehension. Same with imagination and memories, is they kind of exist in this collective consciousness, which is an idea created by Carl Jung, blah, 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 blah. But it's this idea that all of these kind of internal experiences that we have exist externally, and that is the place we access when we dream and when we sleep, which is why you can dream about certain people or have shared dreams, etc. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is they had like a little section about this kind of I guess you would call it like a village, or like this civilization that existed out from like modern day civilization. So they were a lot more primitive, and one of the key things that were most interesting about them is that their whole community was kind of governed by dreams, in the sense that they were very honest about their dreams that they were having, as if they were like real things that had happened. So because of this, everyone was kind of, I guess, self-reporting about things that they were dreaming about, whether it's like, oh, I had a dream I was sleeping with so-and-so's wife, or like vice versa. And how this kind of allowed for like a self-governing community, because those kind of fears and your shadow, which is like another psychological term, is not hidden, but like kind of exposed to everyone, and everyone understands your weaknesses and strengths and your dreams and aspirations or whatever, and it like self-governed. And I thought that was really interesting, because especially in today's day and age, outside of art, dreams aren't really that big of a deal, or at least they don't have any effect on your waking relationships, besides having like a wet dream maybe, and you might tell someone about a dream you had that you were like a dog flying to the moon or something. I don't know. But that would be an interesting topic of discussion, is how I feel like dreams nowadays are very different from dreams back in the day, because a lot of our dreams are influenced by images that, so if you look at it as dreams kind of being a culmination of everything you've seen in your life, and they kind of have to have some kind of context to go off. It's why a child doesn't dream about politics or anything adult, is because they don't have that kind of contextual understanding, so of course they're not going to dream about it. Same goes for like, you can't necessarily dream things all the time that are kind of outside of what you've seen before. They can come from that place where it's like a brand new thing that you've never seen before, but most of the time it's some kind of subconscious imagery that you've kept in, or like your own imagination. But how in today's day and age, because of social media and video games and films, our kind of gallery and catalog of images is expanded, which I think would imply that we have dreams that are a lot more fantastical these days, or ones that are nonsensical and a lot harder to derive meaning from. I can, just from having conversations with people about their dreams, I can't really make sense of them personally. But with my own dreams, I can kind of not analyze them, but gather a lot more out of the images because they're related to my real waking life. Like I'll dream about work, or I'll dream about past places that I've been. Whereas I meet a lot of people and they dream about things that are just so fantastical, like superheroes and stuff. And I personally can't relate to that, so that's not really something I understand. But the main thing I wanted to talk about is this concept that was brought up called soul making. And it's this idea that our soul is made up of all the events that kind of meant something to us or had an imprint on our person or our memories or our emotions. So, you know how you have memories and most of your memories aren't mundane. They are things that have like affected you on an emotional level or have kind of developed you in some way. A lot of who you are right now can be traced back to a significant memory that you have, and it's that memory that kind of is part of your soul. The same way a computer hard drive saves documents and data like memories, you're the same thing where except you only save the significant things or the things that made an imprint on you. So I've written here that soul is connected to events that are inner events that move us in some way. When something happens that isn't for us, as in it doesn't really affect us, it is known as a non-event, as in it didn't necessarily happen, or it may as well not have happened because it didn't affect you in any way. And I've also, this is a quote, for events to become experiences, we must feel connected to them. So our souls are comprised of all these events which affected us in some way. That which we dream and imagine that has the same emotional resonance significance is also soul making, as it becomes part of what defines our soul and who we are. So this is even just things you imagine that have a significant effect on you. I don't know, many people, a lot of people don't do this nowadays unless you're into like manifesting or whatever. But to just kind of close your eyes and imagine something that makes you feel good, even if it's like hugging a relative or giving your friend something that makes them happy. And it just makes you feel happy in this moment, even though it's not actually happening. That is that is part of your soul making, because it's leaving an imprint on your soul, as in it's leaving a memory that feels real. And there's no difference between memories or soul making you do in your brain whenever you want, or ones that actually happen to you in your waking life. And then this goes as far as to say that even dreams are part of this soul making process, where you can have a dream that hits you in such a significant way that it imprints on you, becomes part of your soul, and then may potentially manifest into real life, or at least dictate how you feel that day at the bare minimum. Or maybe even a few years you might remember a dream you had like ages ago and realize that that dream still has relevance right now in this moment. And I think that's really interesting. So dreams, imaginative scenarios, and events that don't affect us emotionally or physically are non-events and do not make up our soul. So our soul is everything that we let affect us emotionally, good or bad. And this is the key. So your soul isn't necessarily made up of good things only. It's made up of all the good and bad. So this is all your trauma and like bad experiences, nightmares, whatever it may be. There's no difference between good or bad. It's just how much it affected you and left an imprint of you. So knowing this, you can kind of realize that a lot of who you are is based off these kind of traumatic events in your past that have been part of this soul making process, because you didn't have that self-awareness to know that if you were ruminating on this, it would actually become who you are. So knowing this going forward, you can kind of be more in control of what makes up your soul. So if something bad does happen to you, or even if it's just a little thing, you can't let it affect you on a significant level, because then it's becoming part of like your soul and your soul making process. So let's say hypothetically something bad does happen to you, you can kind of look at it as, oh, like this is going to end my whole world, like this is oh fuck, like this really sucks, whatever, and just get really emotional about it. Or you can be like, oh, that's not a big deal. I'm not going to let that define who I am. I am all these other things, and imagine all these other things that you would rather be. And then you have control over what your soul is, I guess. And I think there's something really beautiful about that. And there's always that kind of other side of the coin where people say that's just being naive. Like, you need to be able to confront bad things that happen to you, and I agree. But there's a difference between letting it become who you are and kind of dealing with it in the moment. And I feel like nothing is so black and white, you know? Like, you're never going to be able to avoid sadness or hardship or suffering. But there is nuance to it, and you can handle it in ways that serve you rather than hold you back. And I feel like that's the core of spirituality and alchemy and all of these kind of concepts that I am very interested in. Just this idea that you can kind of choose how to be defined, and if you let anything else define you, you're part of that system, you're part of that box. So basically, focus on good and try not to ruminate on the bad. But yeah, if I want to talk about anything else, I'd love to talk about the box that I just mentioned. So it's basically the you can go really deep with this, I guess, rabbit hole or hole, with this box or whatever it may be. But if you're familiar with Gnosticism in a metaphorical sense, not a literal sense, then this, I guess, would already kind of make sense. Or if you just understand history and just society in general, like it's really quite obvious, and that's the thing, everyone's aware of it. For some reason, a lot of people just don't mind or don't really care, and I found that interesting. But basically, the box is any kind of system or matrix or kind of whatever it may be that is kind of dictating who you are outside of yourself. The scenario that affects all of us is when we're born and we're a kid, we kind of have this quote unquote naive view of the world, and it's kind of limitless on what the world could be and what your worth is. You don't even have a definition of worth. But then as you get older, these kind of systems and ways of living are kind of forced onto you, and you just kind of have to accept them because that's how things are. And the most, I guess, relevant one is the idea of money. In a way, we worship money because money in its purest form doesn't mean anything. It has no inherent value. We kind of have this collective agreement that this $5 bill is equal to $5, and you can use that to buy things, sell things, whatever, and this is just like what society is. But if you look at this from a spiritual perspective, it's kind of like you're abiding by the rules of some kind of like game or system, and that is unnatural. And it's not saying that we should live in a kind of non-governed society. Obviously that would never work, but it's saying that despite this kind of governing being necessary and this system, you personally don't necessarily have to play by their rules. And so knowing this information, there are doorways that kind of open up to you that are outside of the limitations of how this game is set up. I'm brushing over a lot right now, but this extends not only to society and currency, but also to your own family, people in your life that you feel like you need to kind of impress, or you need to kind of live by their ways of life. Something that I've realized becoming an adult is my understanding of things is vastly different than a lot of people, and you'll always have people telling you one thing and this is how you do that thing, and you don't have to listen to them. You can make your own decision as an adult. Be like, yeah, I'm not going to fall for that propaganda. A huge one that people a huge thing is the whole pressure everyone feels to kind of move out or stop living with their family. For some reason, this is a very common thing in Australia and America and Western civilization, but around the rest of the world, this isn't necessarily the case. So it really makes you think why this is the case. So it's the idea that you need to kind of move out by a certain age and be independent. The only person this is serving isn't you, it isn't your family, it's the system. You're making the system more money by moving out because instead of there being one family that pays, like one person's kind of amount for a house, whatever it may be, you're now two different people paying two different things, and you're spending more money of your own money and your family's spending more of their own money. And who is that benefiting? I understand some people have family dynamics where they don't necessarily get along with their parents and they need to get away from them. And even though you might not get along with them, I still think it's kind of breaking you away from a lot of growth that you need to have. So yeah, and it makes me wonder, why do so many people kind of have this belief that they need to move out and they need to be independent, they need to work 50 hours a week and they need to blah blah blah, and everyone's in a rush for some reason, and they feel like if they don't do those things they're not good enough or they're falling behind. And I don't know why, and I don't understand. Maybe I'm spoiled, maybe I'm lazy, I don't know, but I feel like what's happening is a lot of people, without overstepping, I feel like a lot of people want to pretend like they have control over their lives. And I feel like it's very difficult for people to kind of realize that nothing is what it seems, that there is a system that is kind of controlling you and everyone around you. And it is scary to think that most people just kind of smile and wave and accept it. And to kind of realize that life isn't in your control, and there isn't one way of doing things, and there is no prize, there is no like mountain that you climb and then the view is beautiful. It is all kind of just like an endless cycle of suffering, and that's not a bad thing. It's just like, I think people, especially at my age, they need to figure out what they value, and if that is working and earning money for the rest of your life, that's great. But I feel like emotionally and spiritually, that's never going to serve you completely. And you can have the hottest body and you can have the best paying job, but that's not going to make anyone love you anymore. And I think that's the kind of joke of life, is that you need to find that love for yourself on your own terms by doing things that serve you and not other people. And only then will you be able to actually accept love, because you love yourself first and foremost. And I feel like that's the key. I went a little bit preachy there, and I'm probably going to cut this part of the video out. But I hope you found that interesting. And dreams are really cool. I would love to be able to remember my dreams and replay them, but I can't, because I'm a human, and humans don't have that capability. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Yeah, and thanks for watching. Bye.